Now, when you're ready to start coloring, I would suggest starting in the smoothest place, which for most of us would either be the forehead, a cheek, maybe somewhere in the neck, but somewhere that's straightforward and doesn't have a lot of shadows and details. So I'm gonna start here in her forehead. Now I don't want these grid lines to show through, nor do I want the dark pencil of my drawing to show through. So I'm gonna make sure I erase those away. Just in that area. I don't have to erase everything. Okay, I'll do that as I go along. Okay, so again, you don't want any of your pencil lines visible. Real people, real objects do not have outlines to them. Okay, so we're gonna start by layering on our colored pencils. And very, very important is that we sharpen them up first. So once I picked out the colors I use, I like to sharpen them before I get moving, so they have a nice point to them. You never want to shade with a dull point, okay? A nice long tip is gonna give you the most even application of your color. Now also, just as important is when you are shading, you wanna build your values from light to dark. You want to layer them on there. You don't wanna just press hard and color, okay? So we are moving beyond simply coloring. We are shading, we are creating, but we are not simply just coloring. So your first couple of layers that you're gonna do are gonna be very, very soft. Okay, and so I'm gonna use my lightest color, which would be my white. I'm gonna look right here at her forehead, and I'm going to turn my pencil, lay it as flat as I can comfortably hold it, and I'm gently putting this white spot on there. Okay, I'm using the side of my pencil point. I'm not pressing super hard. And my edges are gonna soften out because I want them to be able to blend in with my other colors. Okay. So now the next thing I'm gonna go in with is my beige. And now I'm not gonna just make them touch, I'm gonna overlap my beige at the edges of my white. Because again, I want them to blend together. We're gonna use a colorless blender pencil to help us blend them, but we have to get them overlapping and get enough color on there first before we do that. Okay. So my white and my beige are overlapping here. You know, chances are that there's not just gonna be one color that works perfectly for your skin tone. So beige is pretty close, but it's definitely not exact, especially as the skin changes in different areas. So we're gonna have to layer in different combinations. Bring this up. And again, I'm not pressing hard. I don't want to see anybody pressing super duper hard with your colored pencils. Okay, so you're shading with them. I'm just going to bring this kind of over to here. I'm just going to work in this bright area right now. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit of this peach in over here, it gets a little bit softer, a little bit warmer over here. Put a little bit of that up there, a little bit of that up there. Some of this around here. I'm kind of pushing that right up next to her hairline so I don't have a gap. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that sienna brown. Sienna brown, I said before, was a warm brown. And since I just want a hint of it, I'm going super gentle with it. And I'm just gonna let that shade and kind of dissolve out from the edge there. And I'm gonna do the same thing here where it gets a little bit darker. And I'm going super duper soft. If I were to press this on my finger, it is nothing more than a tickle, okay? So I'm not pressing hard with this. It's always easier to make it darker, but if you go too dark to start, colored pencils don't erase in the same way that a regular pencil does. So we can kind of lighten it in some areas, but it's not ideal. Okay, now to help that brown blend in, I'm gonna go back to my beige, which was my base color that I used. So you're gonna find that there's a color or two colors that you use most with your skin tone. The one that's like the best match is, you're gonna go back to that as you layer. So I'm gonna go back over that. I can press just a little bit harder than I did with my brown to get that on there. my hand's moving in circles. Okay, but you can see, and I can feel too, in those areas where I've layered more colored pencil, it's definitely more solid, it's definitely smoother, more glossy. I'm seeing less of the paper showing through. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna add another layer in here with my white. I think I'm also gonna grab that light peach. Let's see if that can help. I'm gonna bridge that gap between. Okay, so I'm layering that in. And again, notice the way that my hand is moving. It's moving in little circles. Okay. And also keep in mind that these are pencils. These are really nice pencils, high quality pencils. They're very soft. But they are still going to look and act like pencils at the end of the day. So if you're seeing little streaks or areas that it's not as smooth as, say, paint would get, that's okay. Okay, they're going to do that. Okay, don't panic about that. Come back in here. Bring a little bit more. So see how I'm just going back and forth and layering between my colors as I put them on, and I notice that they need to be lighter or darker in different areas. Okay. So if you have anything that needs to be blended in beyond what it gets blended by your layering, I'm going to show you that tool in just a second. Go back to my beige. Blend that in. Okay. So now I'm going to take my colorless blender. Okay, it looks just like it's wooden on the outside and the top looks white. If you look at the name, it says colorless. Sharpen that up. Always make sure you check the point. Make sure there's no color residue from where you blend it last. Okay, now I'm going to take, a lot of this is blended just fine. I don't need to go over it, but in my middle here, my white could be a little bit smoother. So I'm going to do what I did with the beige before. I'm just gonna go in little circles right over top of that, and I'm just gonna help push it around, smooth it out, and let it blend a little bit more into those peach and beiges that I overlapped at the edges. Okay, so if you're not overlapping your edges, you're gonna have a tricky time getting it to blend as well. Okay, so everything has a soft touch. Okay, if you're pressing too hard and going with a little bit too much muscle, you're gonna find that it doesn't have that smooth effect. Okay, so the way you treat it with your hand, putting it on, is the kind of the effect that it's gonna have. So if you want it to have a soft, smooth blend, you can't press it super hard. Kind of have to go back and forth with those colors, just like I did with this part. Okay, so you see I have the highlight here, okay, and then it gets a little bit darker over here, and then it starts to get darker here. Okay, and as I would move on to the next sections, I would start to blend in a little bit of my darker browns. And again, doing that nice and soft, nice and gentle.